Welcome back to my little series here about reviewing the Warren Ellis, John Cassidy created book of Planetary, where you can be an archaeologist in comic book history, just like the characters are archaeologists of the impossible and in fantastic. It's full of conspiracy. It's full of everything that's ever made comics. And we're getting closer and closer to the big mystery of Elijah Snow's memory loss, and how long has Planetary been around, and who is the fourth man, and a few other things like that. Now we are seeing the world and discovering things much like Elijah Snow is, through his, we're doing it through his eyes and things. And now we come to what I think was just brilliant use of a genre of that makes perfect sense. If you have a mystery, if you smell a conspiracy, who would you go to? Who would have their hand in it, basically? Who would have the answers and everything like that? And of course, it would be the world's greatest spy, and that spy is John Stone. Okay, and I think it was two of them. Number 9, where we saw about Ambrose Chase, how I felt like that was sort of a Grant Morrison feel to the book. This one is unapologetically a Steranko issue with the influence that Steranko had in comics, considering when you look at the amount of comics Steranko actually did, it's not that many, yet he brought so many new techniques for storytelling, and he brought pop art to comics and stuff. And it's just I think it's one of the more underrated uses of a character, and also to keep on track with what Planetary was trying to do with what makes comic books, where do they pull from. It was just perfect that this is where Elijah Snow would finally be on track of who the fourth man is. Now, as you can see from the cover here of number 11, it's real obvious to see the Steranko. Yeah, this is signed by Steranko. The pop art that Steranko brought into comics in the '60s and stuff. Of where we're going with this, and this is one of those famous classic covers that any collector should recognize. This is also by Arthur's pseudonym for the Marvel Zombies. Obviously, I also had that signed. You're right. But this book is just fantastic, man. Okay. The character John Stone is an amalgamation, obviously, of James Bond and Nick Fury, keeping the influence of James Bond in the '60s with the spies in the television series, and bringing in characters like the Black Widow, who originally was a Russian spy. And a lot of people, when they think of Nick Fury, they think of Shield and they think of the Howling Commandos. But what people kind of forget, and this is the magic of such great storytelling of Jack Kirby, and I'll give some credit to Stan Lee, is that when Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos were telling those were stories that were taking place in World War II. I actually thought that was just another character and another group by Jack Kirby that was brought back from the Golden Age, much like Captain America was in Avengers number 4. And it turns out, no, their first appearance, Nick Fury's first appearance, when I found out years later, it just blew my mind, was actually in the early '60s. And then they brought Nick Fury back. He never really went away. The Howling Commandos book actually went on for a while, but when they placed Nick Fury in the '60s, he was nothing more than a James Bond wannabe type of character, a reflection of the times of the '60s and things. And then they brought in concepts like his Infinity Formula, and then he became a member of Shield and director of Shield and things like that. I'm going by memory here, but I know I'm 99% right on that. Okay, so that was just it's well remembered. Steranko came on. Steranko was actually working at Charlton Comics on a very similar sort of spy book, if you will. Kirby sort of showed him a few things, and then Steranko just blossomed, and he's still a legend to this day, and he still puts out work every now and then. He's ended up working on movies and everything. So with this issue, we start out with John Stone, who basically he's had the same career, popped up around the same time as James Bond, and he is still doing it today, thus a reference to the Nick Fury Infinity Formula, if you know the character. The other thing is that this man wasn't just a spy. He's been in the spy business for so long, there's not a lot he does not know about. He would be he knows about the Planetary guys. He recognizes Elijah Snow. he's kind of, I feel like he was sort of playing along with, oh, you have memory problems, you don't remember that? Remember, we took this guy on in 59. You saved my life in 74. And things like that. So it is no doubt in my mind that John Stone knew exactly what he was doing while he was talking to Elijah Snow. He was feigning ignorance, I believe. And he's known what's going on. He's such a super spy, there's probably nothing covert or conspiracy related that he does not know. I mean, just a fantastic concept when you really read this and think about it. And of course, to get to know John Stone, we get a little bit of a flashback adventure there during the 60s. We got the femme fatales. We got the weird gadgets that spies were famous for. We got stuff in the thumbnail. We got special bullets. We got an evil, gorgeous villain who, what is it? Has a freaking cannon in her, a laser beam in her eye, and a few things. And when you look at the art, there's little things that go back to that are very Jim Starlin-like. The colors, the psychedelic colors, the use of shadows, the use of white. It's not as sexually charged that I picked up on quite a few things, but definitely right more like in the middle of what's going to be the climax of our agent, meeting that famous Bond villainess type person and things. All of a sudden, we are dragged back into Planetary because all of a sudden she's just turned to ice and a foot comes out and shatters that little world. Quite a good ending for transitioning from the genre of spies and a little flashback tale of the 60s and how that influenced comics to all of a sudden it just freezes in time and just gets shattered, and now we're back in Planetary world. I just love that kind of storytelling. Great introduction for Elijah. Okay, and I could be wrong about that being a flashback story. Man, it's been a while. But anyway, we come to find out that he, even when they introduce each other, we get a famous Bond line. Elijah's like, I'm Elijah Snow, and we have, I'm Stone, John Stone, Agent of Storm. So instead of S.H.I.E.L.D., we have Storm. We get another Nick Fury reference there, which is just fantastic. So yeah, it was a flashback story, and then we go up to the year 2000, and they walk into a bar. Now, I might be mistaken. I have to go back and look at it, but Warren Ellis really came into the Wildstorm universe where this book is still supposed to be taking place, and we're learning the secret history of this world. But I think this is the same bar that Warren Ellis had used in his Stormwatch issues. I have to go back and read it. But anyway, they sit down and they're just having a talk. And Elijah Snow just figures, he said he was going to go after John Stone. If there's anybody in the world, like I said, that would have a hand or have knowledge of any kind of conspiracy or what's wrong with his memory, would be him. I mean, he invented, what you come to find out is that he pretty much invented any psychological tactic that spies would use. And if anybody knew anything about messing with people's memories, it would be, our super spy. And we get an idea, we hear a tale or two of what's going on with them, with their history, and how John Stone is feigning ignorance, like, he's kind of skeptical about his memory loss. He's like, well, your mind really is messed up if you don't remember back in 59 in the Nautilus, and you don't remember 74, and you don't remember this. And then he asks him, do you know a name of a guy by the name of William Leather? And he's like, of course, he tried to kill you and me. And all of a sudden, he's just looking at him. And then they go on with another story, and you start learning a little bit more about Planetary. Apparently, Planetary definitely has been around for a long time, because is this by design of John Stone? Is this a keyword to bring back a memory, or was this just coincidence? But he says, yeah, I read about this little thing in the Planetary Guide of 1931. And as soon as that is said, for the first time, instead of looking at the past of the future of comics, looking at the past of Elijah Snow, as far as you can remember, looking at the past of Planetary and things like that, we finally get, we still look at the past, but we start getting flashes of what we're going to find out in the future issues of Planetary. So this was well thought out and well outlined from the, at least by Ellis' standards here, for quite a few issues, okay? But, all of a sudden with those little words of John Stone saying it, I mean, just look at that look on his face. Is that determination, or is that him staring at him, like looking for that recognition of these are the words, haha, letting the reader know? And Elijah Snow all of a sudden has all these flashbacks that he did not remember. And it's overwhelming, man. You can actually feel his head about to explode. He's remembering past lovers, and he's remembering the bar, and he's in great pain. And then all of a sudden he gets an image of Dowling, or evil Reed Richards, if you will, looking down on him on a table. And but the biggest thing that happens is at the end of it is, I know who the fourth man is. So just a fantastic story, very simplistic, not a lot to really read into the subtext other than the James Bond, the spy influence, the motivation. And speaking of motivation, the greatest thing that I found in this was where these two guys sitting down at a bar. John Stone is such a good spy, and the fact that Warren Ellis is at least able to convince us of this could be hacker writing for what the spy world really is. Who knows? Who knows? You know. But he looks at him and he asks the simple questions. He's like, hey man, you know, who benefits from your memory being gone? You know, and that would be the four. And then when his memory comes back in the next issue, this story kind of sees a big change in Elijah, and this number 11 is the pinnacle of that. Without reading number 11 and going straight to number 12, you're going to be lost. Maybe not so much lost as in robbed of a great transition. So as I bag this one back, and I just kind of think it's very, very cool, definitely a good issue to pick up. That one's short, straight to the point. That's two issues in a row where Ellis moves the story along, gives us a little breather before things start getting heavy again. And we're going to move on and find out a little bit more about Elijah Snow now that he has his memory back. It's a payoff for the readers. Okay? All right. Thanks a lot, man. And issue number 12 coming up. Okay? Issue number 12. On the cover, we have pages and pages that we've read from the Planetary book thus far coming back, and it all comes together on who is Elijah Snow, who's the fourth man, who was in on this, and ends this. That will end a great chapter of Planetary, so we can move on.